And a good Thursday evening, everybody. Chris McFiles with you as we wrap up another week of shows on the McFiles. We may or may not be with you tomorrow night, but I tell you what, I just wanted to say a couple of things about our guest tonight. And she was our co-host Tuesday night for our election coverage, and I just felt like it was a daggum good night, as we say down in the South, to have her back on tonight. Mahgdalen Rose of the Rose Report. And I think you won a job Tuesday night. I think you have basically on my short list of people to replace me. Now my sons are embarrassed by me. They don't even claim I'm their dad sometimes when they say, "Is your dad the host of the McFiles?" And they're like, "Chris who? I don't even know who you're talking about." So you've got that job now that if I ever leave this earth, Rose, you are going to be the new Mac Rose Report. I think that's how you should name it. Instead of the McFiles, it would be the Mac Rose Report, right? So, Mahgdalen Rose, everybody, welcome her. How are you, kid? Good to have you tonight.
I'm good. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, look, I tell you, I cannot tell you the number of people that email me, text me. I'm serious. I'm not just saying this to flatter you, hon. We had a lot. We actually had a good time Tuesday night. I have to say, 5 hours went by quick. You, Eric, Maria, I appreciated you. You were in and out, and I already knew you had other obligations, and you stayed up with us all the way till 2 o'clock, and I really appreciate you. You did good, and it wasn't just doing good. It was you brought a lot to the table. You helped me. You helped me understand something Tuesday night. I want to talk about it a little bit tonight. I want to pull in a figure, Mahgdalen, because really right now, the big story tonight, and the only change that we've really had since we last talked on Tuesday, the House. The Republicans are getting a little closer. There's the figure right there in front of everybody, 209 to 190 tonight, and I'll get that picture in the middle of us so they can see both of us. That's as of 9 o'clock tonight. So there's the Dems have lost 7 seats. The Republicans have gained 6 seats, so we're about 9 seats away from a majority in the House, and I don't really see anything in the way of that. But the issue is the margin, because supposedly the Republicans were not looking at just 6 seats. We were supposed to gain 20 to 30 seats, which is a normal midterm gain for the opposing party in an off year like this. And it's not going to, I don't think that's going to materialize. Now, we may have a 3 to 5 seat majority when this is over, but nothing like the red wave that was promised. The Senate, it's going to come down to Georgia, I think, on January the 6th with Warnock and Herschel. And if Herschel don't pull that runoff off in my home state, Senate's going to stay in the hands of the Dems. It's going to make it very difficult for anything in the House anyway to get through to law. And these Dems, this agenda will just keep going. I'm curious how you watched this unfold over the last couple of days compared to Tuesday night. And the finger pointing has started. Everybody's pointing to McConnell. Some are pointing to McCarthy. I think they both are scumbag losers, but that's just my opinion. I'm going to get to the abortion issue in a minute, but I want to ask you in general terms, your takeaway from that figure. Were you expecting that to be higher by now, or is this about what you expected?
Well, I expected it to be higher before we had the election. If you had asked me, 3 days before the election, I would have said anywhere from 25 to 30 seat majority. Once we got to the middle of the Tuesday election, it became clear that we would be lucky to have a 10 seat majority. And that is something that has really sparked a lot of unhappiness in the GOP. I've been talking to a lot of young conservative leaders. These are campaign staffers throughout the country, a lot of them in Arizona, a lot of them in the Midwest, and they are all saying the same thing. They did not see this coming. Their polling did not indicate this. Their door knocking did not indicate this. And it really comes down to the fact that this is squarely on the shoulders of the senior leadership of the RNC and the GOP. And Kevin McCarthy, if Kevin McCarthy wants to be Speaker of the House, that's his business. But if you fail to get your party a majority that's necessary, do you deserve to be Speaker of the House? I'm not saying somebody else will do a better job in terms of elections, but overall governing, Kevin McCarthy's not rising to where he should be. And talking about the Senate for a minute, it's confirmed we've lost Pennsylvania now. And people have to remember that's a loss. That's a flip for Democrats. That was Republican Senator Pat Toomey was no longer seeking re-election. So we've lost a seat already. We picked up in Ohio. But the question of Arizona, I do not think Blake Masters will pull this out. Carrie Lake may. But Carrie Lake is within, a percentage point of Katie Hobbs. It's a different situation. Blake Masters is within several points of the other guys. There's a difference there. And in Arizona, if we lose that Senate seat, I just don't see how we could possibly say that this was even a draw, this midterm elections, whether or not we win or not. To me, this is just an overall failure.
I know that it's already the echo chamber out there, and we talked about this in great detail Tuesday night, and I'm going to debunk this idea that this was due to fraud. I think that there was some of that. There's always some of that in every election. I don't think this election is any different. I think Georgia, it's pretty clear that the measures that Kemp put in this summer, even though I'm not a big fan of his, one thing that he did do, they tightened up their security with the election procedures. And as a result, he won by a handily margin. I mean, he barely beat her in 2020. Yeah. Abrams, barely. I mean, he squeaked by in 2020. This go around, he handed her a very substantial loss and maybe ended her political career, because she was one of these up and rising Dems. She was on every show and just spewing her liberal rhetoric and her crap and all that. But she got thumped, and so did Beto in Texas, and both states, and Florida did the same thing. They put election measures in place to ensure that this did not happen. Now, we discussed this Tuesday night. I want to ask you again tonight for this audience. It is my opinion that voter turnout is going to turn out to be the key. I don't think we had the enthusiasm as much as they did, because the abortion issue was driving the Democrats to the polls in the fear of Trump. And our side was looking at this old leadership. They were looking at the same old candidates. They were looking at the retreads. They were looking at all of the same playfield that we always do, Magdalene, at election time. And I just think people stayed home. Now, I know that there's going to be an echo chamber out there and say, oh, no, Chris, you're wrong. No, people came out. I heard today in a state down south that's very red. And even the local news people were saying that their voter turnout was nearly 30 to 40% down from what it was in 2020. And I believe that that's going to be the story of 2022, Magdalene. That's my opinion. I'm curious what yours is about that.
I agree voter turnout across the board will, except maybe in Florida and Texas, will show to be down. And I think the other factor in Georgia we have to look at, which to me sort of disproves the idea that it's all the fault of the fraud, is that Brian Kemp won by a substantial margin to the point where Stacey Abrams is not contesting it. And Stacey Abrams contests everything. So how is it that Brian Kemp is able to win by such a decisive margin and Herschel Walker is not? And I think that comes down to the fact that whether or not people like Brian Kemp, people in Georgia liked him in a way that they were not getting on board with Herschel Walker. And in going into this Georgia runoff, I know that the thought is just have Trump campaign with Herschel Walker and hold those rallies. But if we're looking at a situation where a Republican governor was just overwhelmingly reelected in Georgia, not to the extent that DeSantis was, but still a decisive victory, why would you then bring in Trump? If I was running the Herschel Walker campaign tonight, I would say I want Brian Kemp there to stump for him and have Ted Cruz and Ben Carson, all of them come in, but make Brian Kemp your anchor, because Brian Kemp got it done.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear to my audience, I can already see the echo chambers out early tonight. Folks, we are not telling you, and we're not saying that we do not believe that there was not fraud and election fraud in these states. We're not stupid. We're not naive. I didn't fall off a turnip trunk, as I like to say lately. We are very aware that nefarious things go on in all elections. But this is 2022, folks. I think some folks act like that the Dems just started cheating yesterday. They've been cheating for 30 years, folks. And the problem I got with this echo chamber is this. We bitch and we gripe and we moan about the cheating, and nothing is ever done about it, Magdalene. Nobody steps to the plate to stop it. And then whenever an election goes the wrong way, it's an easy crutch. Because we don't want to admit that evil people elect evil leaders, and turnout is always the key. And if you don't get out and vote, you give them ample opportunity to cheat. And if our side, look, I look at your old state of Virginia. You all had a huge turnout to put that governor in the House, and the governor's house. You know what happened? There was numbers in Virginia that were out of the park. They couldn't cheat in Virginia, Magdalene, and your state went red top to bottom with no issue, correct? Am I right on that?
Yes. Yes, and one of the things I've thought about with this is if we're looking at this whole map and we see the Senate the way it is, at some point we have to talk about the fact that candidates who ran these sort of quiet platforms, like in Nevada, for example, that Nevada Senate race may very well go for the Republican. And who saw that coming?
Exactly.
That was not
and he's up big. I mean, I looked at the percentages, not to interrupt you. He's up substantial on her. He's not just, it's 51.7 to 47. He's beating her big in Nevada. And that's an interesting factor. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
And who saw that coming? And so my problem here is that the races that were not all over Fox News, Nevada, for example, he has an edge, and he looks like he may be on a pathway to victory. And if not, he has closed the gap substantially for Republicans in the state for the first time in a decade. Whereas you look at Pennsylvania, or you look at Blake Masters in Arizona, those candidates are always on every show on Fox News. I've watched a lot of Fox News over the last 2 weeks, and they are on Hannity, Jesse Waters, Tucker Carlson, The Five, they're on all of the shows. So maybe having your candidates slathered all over Fox News is becoming a liability for the GOP.
I think that you're making a great point. And again, I'm not so sure that may be factoring in more. And I think, and we talked about this too Tuesday night. Look, what the media is doing right now is that they are highlighting the losses in Pennsylvania, and they're highlighting the losses in Arizona. The Pennsylvania Senate race was not the only race that was out there. Look, Oz was the most probably public figure, and Pennsylvania, I agree with Eric Karen. It was the most disappointing. It was the most shocking that Pennsylvania would elect a Marshmallow Man to represent it in the Senate, okay? And again, you just think about it. It's just unreal that they would do that. Now, whether that's by fraud, lack of votes, people didn't like Oz, or whatever, it's still shocking. And that is what the media is holding up as the poster today. And then you've got the Republican infighting. I saw Getz get out there tonight and slam McConnell and slam McCartney. And, it's like a bunch of kids in a playground. I'm just watching this from afar. And I shake my head at this, and I'm like, no wonder the Republican Party's in a mess, Mag. No wonder we're in a mess.
It's a disaster. And if you look at Oz, for example, where is Oz today? Because you see all these Republican candidates, even the ones that lost, they're out there stumping for other people. They're giving rundowns on different news channels. They're on social media. Dr. Oz has vanished. And I think that that's greatly disappointing because there was a huge amount of money that was invested in him. I know young campaign staffers who left other campaigns to go work for Oz because they wanted to help him and they thought he needed seasoned help. And Dr. Oz has vanished. And there is a lack of loyalty amongst these new candidates to the people. So when you have somebody like, Carrie Lake, of course, is still in the battle, but she may very well lose. She's still out there. You have people who have lost who are still out there trying to help in the final hours of this midterm election. Dr. Oz is not one of those people, and that is because he's not a real conservative. When you put not real conservatives in these positions of power, they're not there when the weather's bad. They're only there when it's all sunshine, and as soon as it got rocky for him, he has disappeared and he's gone back to his private celebrity life.
Yeah. And again, I'm not going to try to figure out the Pennsylvania situation. And I know it's an easy crutch. And again, folks, there's no way to say exactly. I think all of these factors played into this, Magdalene. I do. We're not trying to deny the fact that we don't believe that there's election irregularities out there. For God's sake, the election irregularities and corruption has been going on for 50 freaking years in this country. And again, what pisses me off about it, and I mean this, I am so sick of hearing about it and nobody stops it. Nobody does anything to stop it. No. We can stop it if we wanted to stop it. Right. That's my point. And again, we moan and groan. Well, they cheated. Well, stop the cheating. Get in front of your state legislator's face. Get in front of your governor's face. Get in front of your county official's face and stop it. But don't complain about it if you don't go out and vote. Because let me tell you something, if you don't vote, they'll cheat every time, and it will make it easy for them to cheat every time. I'm a little wired up on this Thursday night. I'm
I
sorry.
understand.
What you say?
No,
What you
well,
say?
the states that harden their election security, you don't have this issue with. When you look at Florida, that's able to count millions and millions of votes within a few hours, and we're still waiting on Maricopa County. So there's a problem here. What I don't understand is if mail-in ballots are going to be the standard now, fine. If we have to accept that, we have to accept it. Why are they only beginning to count mail-in ballots on election day? What is the point of them then?
Come on.
Why are they not beginning to count them as soon as they get them?
Come on.
Because if they did that, we would have election decisions on election night, because all they would have to count is day of, which they've always been able to do and they've always been prepared for. So if you're going to continue this mail-in ballot, then what I would do if I was Republican leadership and I was somebody in that position, I would not try to get rid of mail-in mail-in ballots. I would say you have to start counting them as they come in, because what they want to do is they want to wait it out and try to get people disenfranchised and try to have less attention on what they're doing. But if you count them as they come in, you're not going to have these days of not knowing. The people running the Maricopa election I just saw are saying they're not going to know till Monday night.
Yeah,
how ridiculous
I heard that today. It is ridiculous. If you went on American Idol tonight and you sang as beautifully as you talk, I can guarantee you they could tabulate the 37 million votes that you get in about 15 minutes. And we can't tabulate a few 100,000 votes in 6 days. Give me a break. Give me a break.
It's ridiculous. And then we have, conservatives saying, well, that's not really the issue. The issue isn't that the election results are delayed. That is an issue because it creates civil unrest in this country, non-violent civil unrest, but still civil unrest, not knowing the decisions for major races. If you think back to 2018, they had called the House at like 9 o'clock. Remember that we were all really upset about the fact that they called the House so early, people were still in line to vote, yet somehow it's now Thursday night and we still don't have the election results because of mail-in voting.
What do you do? Where does that start? Is that in the state legislature or is that in the governor's? Where does that decision come from? Is that county or is that state?
I think it's state, and I think it has to be with county cooperation. I mean, personally, I would take it to the very federal level. I would say that we have to have a streamlined approach to counting ballots, and then let Democrats come out against that. Let them argue why we can't know our election results the night of, because there's no reason for why we can't know them. There's no marketing to explain why it's bad that we start, what do they always say, saving democracy early on in the night. I think that that's a winnable point to be on, to just stop this election uncertainty at Thursday night.
Yeah, I'm with you there. You said something on the show Tuesday night, and we're going to, folks, let me just say this. We're going to take a few of your questions, and at the end of the show, please don't be putting those in there right now. But this is the thing. I know there's some that don't want to have mail ballots, period. There's some that do. I see your point, and I think that, I don't know. I don't know. How we are, but I will say you this: it's a mess, and until somebody fixes this problem, Magdalene, we're going to go through this every cycle. We're going to go through this every election cycle, and I don't know if there's going to be any solution because see, there's not, and I know, and Silence do good. It's good to see you tonight, and I understand his point that the founding fathers may not have wanted the mail-in ballots. But the problem is the leadership now is not the founding fathers. You've got weak leadership, and you've got people in power that will not enforce the law. And it was you or Eric or maybe Maria, maybe it was you that said this is called election day, not election month. This ain't election week. This is election day. And I'm with you. And this is the way I look at it. This is the way I do it. Let me just say it like this. How can I put this? If we don't enforce the laws we already have on the book, it ain't going to matter what we do to add new ones because the new ones are not going to be enforced no more than these current ones are. And again, that goes back down to leadership. That goes back to your state houses. That's why your state elections matter. That's why your local elections matter. Because a lot of these decisions are coming from county boards and county election officials, correct? Am I right about that?
You are right about that. And they're also coming from the Secretary of State for these states. And you look at Arizona. Arizona is ridiculous. Katie Hobbs is running for governor. She's a Secretary of State for Arizona. So she's running her own election.
And absolutely.
How is that not a conflict of interest?
Come on.
If that was a Republican, there would have been their version of a special inspector or whatever they want to call it to be running that election. It is irresponsible. It's ridiculous. She will have to certify her own loss if she loses. Do we honestly think that she's going to do that? And that's not to say she's, a bad person or whatever, but on a political level, she has every opportunity to at least make it difficult for Republicans to win races. Right. And we still have this conflict of interest.
Well, look, she is a bad person, by the way. I'll disagree with you. Katie Hobbs is an ugly person. Even her sister was going on Project Veritas saying they're trying to cheat out here in Arizona. But anyway, but I'm with you. It's a conflict of interest, Magdalene. At the very least, it's a conflict of interest. But this whole Maricopa County crap, it's just making my head spin. And look, if Kari Lake pulls this out, it'll be an act of God to me. I think that if she pulls it out, it'll be an act of God. I hope she does for Arizona's sake. But anyway. And folks, please respect my guest tonight and just listen for right now, and we'll get your questions in just a second. Anyway, let me ask you a couple of questions tonight. You said something that was very intriguing to me, and it got me thinking all week. It did. We underestimated the issue of abortion in this election, didn't we? We underestimated how rapidly the Dems were willing to defend the killing of babies Tuesday night, as compared to our side that was not rapidly enough ready to defend those babies. Is that an accurate statement?
It is, and I got this wrong. I think most people got this wrong. When Roe v. Wade was overturned, we all celebrated, and I waited for the rioting to begin. I waited for the mass protests for a Women's March 2.0, and it didn't come. And I naively thought, oh, well, that just means they're not that interested in it. But the difference is we've grown accustomed to seeing outrage on the left in the form of rioting. So we had become sort of desensitized to the idea that they could just riot or just go out and vote in the polls, rather, and have that be their objection. Women are a different type of voting mass than men are, or than even situations where there's police brutality and African Americans go out and riot to try to make their voices heard. Women went to the polls this election cycle, women my age, women older, and they went and they voted for abortion. And the culture of abortion celebration is relatively new. There was not this thing of, oh, shout your abortion a couple years ago. Instead, there was a quietness about it, and that quietness has returned in the shape of young women and older women going out to vote solely for reproductive, as they say, health benefits or health acceptance.
So well said. Corey Aguilar's got a great comment. She said, we were relying on people focusing on the economy and how bad it is rather than their body, their choice. It was a do-si-do. They got us convinced in the media that people were upset with the economy, and they probably were, Magdalene, but I tell you what, they looked at this thing and they looked at this abyss and they said, you know something? We'd rather defend the killing of the babies than care about whether we're paying $8 a gallon at the gas. That's a dark country, friend. That's evil.
That is. And we didn't see it coming. My mom would always say, this economy is a disaster, but somehow there's help wanted signs everywhere. So I think maybe we didn't understand the fact that people are choosing not to go back to work. And when people are choosing not to go back to work or not to get new jobs, that's very different than people simply not having jobs. There are people in this country, millions of people who got very used to living like they did under COVID and living and having these gig jobs and getting social media money. They don't need go in every day 9 to 5 or hardworking jobs anymore. And those people have the luxury of voting solely on abortion.
That's very well said. They just updated this total. We have now gained 6 seats. The Democrats have lost 8 seats, 210 to 192 here at 946 in the East tonight. And so that gives us, 8 more we've got to get before we win the House. So very, very interesting. So we've not quite won it yet. What is your take going forward? What do you see in this Georgia primary coming up, this runoff? Do you think Herschel has the gusto to take Warnock?
I don't. No, I don't think he does. And the problem we have is that Raphael Warnock has done this already. Everyone, of course, has won a race if you're the incumbent, but he specifically won a Georgia runoff.
He did.
And I think recently, the problem that I have with Herschel Walker is I don't know who he is as a candidate. Whenever I see him talk, I hear the buzzwords, I hear the phrases, and if I was in Georgia, I would have voted for him happily because I would want a Republican-controlled Senate. But he has very little identity that's been seen. Even tonight, I saw him. I forget which show it was on, but he's sitting there with Ted Cruz, and all I'm hearing is what Ted Cruz is saying. Or before, all I'm hearing is when Lindsey Graham is sitting next to him or Ben Carson's stumming for him. He has very little political personality other than being the rah-rah guy. In Georgia, you need to have a real personality. I think Raphael Warnock is going to have a better chance in the Georgia runoff because Raphael Warnock has established himself as an individual, whereas Herschel Walker is just part of this conglomerate of Republicanism right now.
Yeah, that's sad. And look, I'm a Georgia Bulldog fan, and Herschel Walker was our man in 1980. He led us to a national championship, and I think that you hit on something I want to talk to you about because it does seem the Republicans tend to rely on star power, whereas Democrats rely on issue power. And am I right in that? Is that an accurate look?
You are, and it didn't used to be like that. About 8 years ago, it flipped. We were the issue policy people. They were the ones bringing out Jay-Z and Beyonce and Katy Perry and all this. And all of a sudden, we are just star power people. And it's not serving us because we don't have Hollywood. So all we get are these sort of offset of people who are conservatives. We don't have real star power. We have political intrigue. It's a very different system. We can't win with this.
Yeah, I'm with you. Interesting. Folks, you're watching a very special live McFiles tonight, and we've got our dear friend, Mahgdalen Rose, on the air with us tonight. She did such a beautiful job Tuesday night, and I wanted to bring her back on. Do you feel like that we are going to take the House? What is your what you think our margin's going to be? 10, 20? What do you think?
I think 10. I think we'll take the House. I think it's pretty certain we'll take the House. I think it'll be by 10 to 12 seats. But the problem I have is we're not getting what we deserve in terms of how Joe Biden has governed this country. Based on how Joe Biden has governed this country, we should have a 40-seat majority right now. But somehow people were not angry at Joe Biden. And that is frustrating to me because this is a man whose failures while in office politically have been obvious. You've had the collapse of Afghanistan, Putin invaded Ukraine, the stock market was crashing, gas prices skyrocketing, no baby formula. And yet the American people have almost decided that he's not responsible for anything. I wonder something that bothers me a bit. I wonder if us saying, and the conservative media is saying that he's incompetent, has dementia, if the American people have absolved him of all of this because they think he's not in control. And if that's the case, I don't even know how to handle 2024.
Yeah. What is your take on this January 6th now? They're out there tonight. This is the head story on Breitbart. I'll just read you the story. It says, Republicans should replace losers like Liz Cheney, force Pelosi to testify. America deserves the full truth. They're not in power yet. When do you think when the Republicans take office, what do you see them doing first? Are they going to clean this January 6th stuff up? Are they going to go after Biden? Are they going to waste their time on these trivial pursuits? Are they going to govern like we need them to govern and fix this economy and get us back on track if they can?
They're going to go after Joe Biden. And what they should do is they should go after the thousands of new IRS agents that were just created. If I was Kevin McCarthy or a Republican in leadership, that would be what I would be dealing with day one. I fear that what's going to happen is they're going to have their show hearings about the Hunter Biden thing, yes, which is awful, but it's not what America cares about right now. And the reality is, what can they really do? If they were smart, what they would do is handle the IRS agents, and they would have hearings about the amount of money going to Ukraine, and they would have hearings about the collapse of Afghanistan. They would use that time and power as a true investigation of Joe Biden's major policy failures while president, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's interesting. Anything the media can do. All right, now I'm going to bring up a very sensitive subject, and I'm sure that people are not going to like this subject, but I do have to ask you this. How much does Trump play into this defeat? And I wouldn't call it a defeat. Look, I feel like if we won the House, that's a win. Even though the margin may not be the best, that's a win. We take back the House. But the Senate could have been ours. I truly believe the Senate could have been ours, Mahgdalen. I do. And I read an article tonight by the Chicks on the Right. Great website. They are podcasters. They're very good. They're very conservative. And I think out of 172 places that Trump endorsed candidates, he won 168. Only 4 of his candidates lost. And even though the media is going to highlight those 4, there were 168 winners. I'm not going to blame President Trump for this, because I think this goes back to the leadership. I do. I think it goes back to the leadership. Now, I may be wrong about that, and there may be a difference of opinion out there in the la la land world of the internet. From Magdalene Rose's standpoint, from a younger person's standpoint, what is the younger people saying where Trump fits into all of this? And looking ahead to 2024, are we looking at a Trump-Biden rematch?
I think Trump served the purpose he needed to in those red races where he endorsed and maybe he got the base out and was supportive. I think he served a good purpose in Ohio because Ohio is Trump country. It has been since 2016.
Yes.
J.D. Vance needed him. I don't like J.D. Vance, but J.D. Vance needed Trump to get elected in Ohio. I think that's clear. The problem I have is that Trump moves within certain states where he's not well liked. I think Trump has to understand that there are certain states where he is not liked. He is not liked in Massachusetts. For example, we lost the Massachusetts governorship, and Charlie Baker was not running. It was not with a candidate, but we lost that race in large part because Trump got involved in the primary process and picked a candidate that was more aligned with him. So we lost the Massachusetts governor race because the Republican candidate on that side was considered too Trumpish to the people of Massachusetts. I went to high school in Massachusetts. I can tell you that is not a Trump-friendly place. I think that going forward, Trump needs to understand that when he goes all in Pennsylvania, which is the state that has never liked him and is very much in favor of Joe Biden on and off throughout the time, even when Obama was president, when he goes all in on these middle ground states, he can do more harm than good. Yes, he can totally help us out in Kentucky or South Carolina or all these little areas. But in Pennsylvania, in Massachusetts, in Arizona, he is not well liked right now. And that's just a reality he has to accept.
Do you think he will accept that? Because I don't see him. I don't see him accepting that. I think his ego gets in the way sometimes. I think he thinks that the country is going to fawn over him. And look, we support him. And I'm with you, like you said about Herschel Walker. If President Trump runs in 2024, I'll be right there voting for him and pulling for him, and because I hope he wins. I just, what I see happening though is we've got some battle lines that are being drawn tonight, and it's probably going to be ugly. I'm not so sure that there ain't going to be an ugly primary contest. Because let me ask you this. This is another question. What is it benefiting him to take shots at DeSantis? Because DeSantis has made no indication that he's running in 2024, and I find that so bizarre. I do, unless it's just a do-si-do, and he's going to bring him under his arm and say, me and DeSantis, we've made up. We're going to run. I'm going to put DeSantis on the ticket. I've not heard anybody in Florida say that DeSantis has indicated he even wants to be on the ticket at all in 2024. I don't see it being a win for him anyway. Why take shots at one of the most popular governors in the country? Trump does not win dog catcher if he don't win Florida, Magdalene. I'm sorry. Florida's like a state he has to win. It ain't something he can win and win. No, he has to have Florida. He has to have Ron DeSantis on his side, correct?
He does. And I think this comes down to the fact that Donald Trump went from being a very successful businessman who the media fawned over for decades to winning the presidential Republican primary handedly, to winning the presidency handily. And he never experienced failure in this. He had never been eclipsed. So then even 2020 happens, he's still not eclipsed by anybody. Joe Biden has dementia and is just not very interesting politically. Ron DeSantis has begun to eclipse Trump, I think, in intrigue in a lot of Republican circles. And this makes him very angry. If you look at the shots he takes at DeSantis, they're very nasty. He says things like, I know him better than everybody except his wife. Ron DeSantis is an average governor with average numbers. This isn't true. He's not an average governor. He is a governor that has led on a majority of issues. He is not your standard Republican governor. He is a fighter in a lot of these aspects. Donald Trump is hitting on DeSantis because Donald Trump does not want him to be eclipsed. He does not want Donald Trump to not be the main focus. And if you look at where the RNC is, a lot of people in the RNC would breathe a massive sigh of relief if Donald Trump on November 15th endorsed Ron DeSantis. He will not do that. He will instead begin a whole primary battle. The crux of why he attacks DeSantis is because if he doesn't, and DeSantis continues to skyrocket, Trump knows that the amount of people in that party are going to shift over to Ron DeSantis, at least in the background scene. And those people are the ones he needs to have a real presidential run and have it financed.
I totally agree with everything you just said. But the $1,000,000 question is, then why attack him? Why? You answered that question, but is that
because he wants to?
He wants to. Is that a winning strategy, though?
No, it's not a winning strategy. No, not at all. He's wrong to do it. It makes no sense. And also, Florida has a hurricane right now. So the last thing Donald Trump should be doing is attacking Florida on a hurricane when they're still rebuilding from the last one. It's the first hurricane to hit Florida in November in a lot of years and decades. So the last thing he should be doing is attacking Ron DeSantis. But the crux of it is he's attacking Ron DeSantis because he wants to, because he wants everyone to know that he's in charge. And if you read the statement he put out about him today, he talks about loyalty and DeSantis not being loyal enough. At what point is it enough? At what point have people paid their loyalty dues? DeSantis has never broken with him policy-wise. DeSantis does not trash him.
Exactly.
DeSantis is welcoming to him in Florida and all his people. There has to be complete loyalty. And to Trump, loyalty means getting out of the way in the primary field. And that's why he's attacking DeSantis, because he doesn't believe he will get out of the way.
Yeah, I think he will. I've heard. But I'm going to just make it clear to the audience tonight. This is not a slap at President Trump. I love President Trump. I disagree with him attacking DeSantis. I feel like it's not a good strategy. I do not blame him, though, for this loss. I do not. There are people out there that are. There's people that are always Monday morning quarterbacking these things, and say even the vote. It's just like the voters out here that are upset that we didn't get this majority, and they want to throw it off on the fraud and everything else, and they don't want to look at the mirror and realize that a lot of Republicans stayed at home, a lot of Christians stayed at home. Do you realize that 4.5 million Christians stayed at home in 2020? Yeah. That's a lot of Magdalene. That could have turned. Look, but those margins in those battleground states were less than 50,000 votes in all of them. I think the total margin, I can't remember a figure. I think when you added up the 5 battleground states that went the other way, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, and Arizona, and you look at the margins that basically was given to that other side, you wouldn't even total 150,000 votes. No. Now, if 4.7 million Christians stayed at home, and let's just say that same number stayed at home last night or Tuesday night. Yeah. How many races? What would have happened in Pennsylvania? Yeah. If maybe another 500,000 Christians went to the polls and went with Oz. Again, not about personality, but you got Marshmallow Man that looks like the pure tea devil, looks like Anton LaVey wannabe, and then you got Dr. Oz, who may not have been the most conservative of candidates, but he sure as hell is going to be better than what the Democrats were pushing. So what kind of difference does voter turnout make? What difference would it make, and where would we be talking about tonight? We may have been talking about a red wave. It don't matter what kind of wave you think you're going to have. If people don't go out and vote, you ain't going to have anything. Am I right on that?
You are, and I think when we talk about specifically turnout, if you remember, we have been told really since the last 2 years of Trump's presidency that the Republican Party was winning the African-American vote, that we were going to get it by 30-point margins. And there were commentators throughout the entire conservative movement who sold us on this idea. Well, the results are in. We got 13% of the African-American vote, which is exactly the same than all the previous elections. There's been no increase in African Americans voting for Republicans nationwide. It didn't happen. And the amount of money and resources and airtime that has been wasted in this pursuit of trying to get African Americans to vote for the Republican Party, it's showing up. Whereas if we had spent that money on Hispanic voters and Asian voters and just independents, we would have seen a lot more turnout, because Hispanic voters across the board are trending Republican. DeSantis won huge margins, as did Marco Rubio and other Republicans up for re-election in Florida. Same thing with Arizona and Texas. But this obsession with getting African Americans to vote for the Republican Party, I think it has been a waste of time, because it's not going to happen. It's fine for an entire group of people to decide to vote one way. That's okay. We don't have to beg them to vote for the Republican Party, because it never does anything for us.
Very well said. If Trump does run, and I expect him to make an announcement, I do. I expect it at any day now, honestly. Who do you think he puts number 2? And I don't think it's DeSantis, but I'm just curious. What's your thoughts?
I think Kristi Noem will be on that short list. I think Jim Jordan will be on that short list.
Wow.
J.D. Vance, probably, because J.D. Vance has made no secret of the fact that he has presidential and vice presidential ambitions. And also Ohio and Florida is a good ticket, joint ticket idea. Personally, I don't think that the list of people who want to be Trump's VP will be as long as people think, because it is a thankless job. And also, there is this fear, and I know this from Republican staffers and young strategists, there's a fear of working for Trump, that you'll be persecuted, that law enforcement will come to you, people might go to prison. When you see that the majority of Trump's senior leadership in the 2016 campaign has at one point or another been in federal prison or under investigation by the FBI, that's scary. And what he's doing to DeSantis right now, I think, is only going to make people feel bad for DeSantis. So in that short list, I would put J.D. Vance at the top of possibilities, because J.D. Vance will toe the line and could possibly help deliver Ohio.
Yeah. I think that we need to understand, though, that Trump, and I had somebody tell me this about 4 weeks ago. I was having dinner with my dear friend Brad Johnson. We were sitting in the parking lot, and he looked at me, and he made a comment. I'll run it by you. And whether you like Trump, hate Trump, or whatever you want to feel about Trump, he is the only one politically. Look, I'm a faith person, and I look to God for my help. I look for the Lord to help this country, Magdalen. I do. I think ultimately God is the only one that can save America from America. Politically speaking, though, just strictly politics. It's not a spiritual statement. This is a political statement. Of all the people out there, Trump is probably the only one that can come in from the outside and clean this mess up if he will. My problem that I've got, and it's a growing concern, is that the same people that were speaking this crap into his ear his first 4 years are still hanging around him right now, speaking the same crap to him in 2022. And if that's the case, we are not going to get any different result, because you can't go in there screaming to the American public, I'm going to go clean the swamp, when you bring the swamp into your cabinet. He did that, and I'm going to tell you something right now. I think that was one of his biggest failures. Look, he did a lot of great things. The economy, I agreed with the move of the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. I agreed with him on trade. I agreed with him on everything he did. The border, most secure border president we had. I can list his accomplishments left to right. Give freedom to the church. But the one thing that he didn't do ultimately cost him everything. He did not clean out the swamp, Magdalen. You got to clean the swamp out. You got to.
You do. And everybody in politics who works in it knows that those cabinet choices, and not even just the cabinet, if you'll remember, his, the executive assistants to the president, they were all a mess. You had Omarosa in there. You had people in the cabinet who were leaking to the press. You had Tillerson as Secretary of State to start off, not to mention the 2 attorney general picks. My fear as well with Trump is that, let's say he wins and everything, all that's going to happen is you're going to have another generation of Republican grifters. And I have to tell you, as a young conservative, I'm tired of that. It's enough. He should know better. He should know better than to hire the same people over and over again. But the problem he's going to have is a lot of people in the GOP do not want to be involved with Trump. Maybe they believe everything he says. Maybe they want to be elected, but they're afraid. They're afraid of persecution by the FBI. They're afraid of investigations, even if they've done nothing wrong. There are people on his side who've been prosecuted or in federal prison, who we had to pardon and all sorts of things, who did nothing wrong. And they don't want to be those people. The Democrats have done a very good job of making Trump a little bit radioactive to other conservative strategists and campaign people, because they're afraid for their livelihoods and their families.
Yeah. Good point. Folks, you're watching a very special McFiles Thursday night with my dear friend Magdalen Rose. And poor judgment is right, Cleo. Absolutely, friend. Steve says only 22% voted in the Indianapolis area Tuesday, and because of that, Democrat Andre Carson won. He's terrible, to say the least. Steve, thank you for making my point. When 22% turnout, Magdalen, shows up at the polls, I can tell you right now, you're going to lose. The candidate's going to lose. I'm sorry, the Republicans are going to lose if 22% shows up. Thank you, Steve. 22% turnout.
Yeah. And why is that? And the question I have is, why did Kevin McCarthy not know that was happening?
Come on.
How did he not know?
Come on.
How did he not know that? He is one of the most politically plugged. He's a political junkie. That man goes to sleep with Twitter and wakes up to Fox News. And he did not know that we had low turnout problems. How did he also not know that all the polls were wrong? How did he not know that every polling bureau in D.C. and Trafalgar polling and all those systems, they were all wrong? And the other problem I have is Mitch McConnell, who's in hiding. Make no mistake, the fact he's not on television means he's hiding. And I would be in hiding politically if I was Mitch McConnell, too. I'm terrified to hear the fury of Republicans, and especially Sean Hannity right now. These people didn't know we had a turnout problem. It is 2022. Everything can be tracked. Every bit of data, every bit of polling, it can all be tracked. And you didn't know we had a turnout problem. That, to me, shows the level of arrogance going into this election had to be so high they didn't think it was possible for them to lose.
Yeah. Very, very intriguing. Very, very intriguing. Folks, if you got a question for Mahgdalen tonight, go ahead and put it in the chat room. We'll open up the chat room a little bit to questions. We may read a few things. Jen Stormtrooper says, they say we won't get the final results till November 25th. I don't think it'll be that long. That's just blather of the media and a bunch of pathetic people anyway. I do want to make it clear tonight, Mahgdalen, I want to say it again. I do not blame Trump for this loss. I think he made some strategical errors in some states, but this was all on the Republican leadership. And let's just be honest with you, Trump ain't in leadership no more. He's an outsider. He's out of the leadership. McCartney, this is Mitch McConnell. This is Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCartney. This is all on them. My buddy Suzanne May sent me a message tonight, and she says, I'm very upset people are blaming Trump. Suzanne, if you're out there, I ain't. And I don't think Mahgdalen is either. I think Trump did everything he could. But this is the thing. Until he gets that leadership out of the way, then even if he got elected in 2024, you're going to have the same mess that you've had for the last 4 years with him in there. That's got to be cleaned out. Mitch needs to be ditched, and McCartney needs to be put to pasture too. Both of those men do not have Trump's back. They do not have this country's back. And until that happens, the Republicans are going to be spinning into oblivion. That's my take on it. What's your thought?
And I've lost confidence in Mitch McConnell completely. I was one who thought, maybe Mitch McConnell, he understands the inside track more than we do. Maybe he should be given another chance. I'm off the team Mitch McConnell in all ways, because this is a man whose party has just suffered a complete failure in a lot of ways. The voters are disenfranchised. People are sad, disappointed. He is hiding. He's in hiding. And he is supposed to be the default leader of the Republican Party when we don't have a Republican president. The Senate Majority Leader, Senate Minority Leader is supposed to be the default leader of the Republican Party, as I see it, if we don't have a Republican president in office, and he's in hiding. Yeah. And to me, that shows that he has no concern for trying to assuage the worries of the Republican voters. And it's not as if he's out there working really hard. Have you even seen him stumping for anybody? Have you seen him out there doing rallies and doing rallying cries? It's not happening, because first of all, he doesn't help anyone when he does the rallies, and second of all, he has nothing to offer. I don't know if Kevin McCarthy is as bad, but I do think Kevin McCarthy is not plugged in anymore, and he does not understand what this country cares about anymore.
I'm going to go over to Facebook. Got a couple of questions for you, and Danny, I'm going to ask you your question, but Corey Aguilar's got an interesting question in the take, and I want to read this to you. Good statement. She says, I find it strange that if someone votes for the Republican governor, why not straight red down the line? The numbers in Arizona make no sense. Senate race has a large gap. The governor's race is that. That's an excellent question and an excellent point. I'm curious your take on that. That's a good point. It's a good question.
Because people want Republican governors, I think, more than they want Republican senators sometimes, because governors greatly impact how they live. If you think back to COVID, people under Republican governor rule, I'm sure there are a few exceptions, but by and large, they had more freedom under COVID. And I think people realized, even independents and moderates and Democrats, a lot of them realized they would rather have a Republican governor in place if there's another disaster, another issue, another pandemic, because those governors give more freedom to their people. Whereas with the Senate, they just want Democrats to have complete control of the Senate. So they split those tickets. And in Arizona, I will say this, Blake Masters is an acquired taste. He's a very smart man. I think he has a good future in some aspect in conservatism. I think he's well-spoken. I liked his overall presentation, but he's an acquired political taste. He's a little bit sharp, and I don't think he was communicating well to the people of Arizona who weren't already Republicans. Because if you're looking at his results right now, they're not solid. There's quite a big gap. Whereas Mark Kelly was much more, the homegrown nice guy in a different way. Governors are the people that decide how people live. Senators are the people who are on Fox News or on MSNBC and CNN and have a big role in the White House. People want Congress for some reason in the hands of Democrats, but yet they want their lives governed by Republicans.
Great point. Good question, Corey, and great answer by Miss Magdalen tonight. There's a lot of people asking, can you be on the vice president ticket? I would say, I think we need to have a Mac Rose ticket. I think that would be pretty good. She says no. I would put her on my ticket. Hey, a couple of Jamie Ecker, good to see you tonight, dear. She says, would you come, Magdalen, to Gonzaga and speak to our college students? Would you go to Gonzaga and speak to the kids if they ask you to?
Maybe. You can always send me an email and give me the details.
Okay, we'll do that. Kathy R. says, does she think abortion was a big solid issue and school loan forgiveness make the difference for them? You know, we didn't talk about the student loan forgiveness thing. Do you think that was a solid issue too? The abortion issue, Kathy, we've already talked about. It was definitely an issue. Oh, yeah. Those Democrats wanted to protect the killing of the babies. Mm-hmm. And even the Democratic strategist, I thought about you Wednesday morning after the fact. There was a Democratic strategist on Fox News. First words out of her mouth, Brian Kilmeade asked her, he says, how did the Dems stop the red wave? And she said, we were scared as hell of Trump, and we wanted to keep abortion legal. She literally said it. And the second she said it, I said, Magdalen said that last night. Yeah. But what about the student loan forgiveness stuff? You think that played a role too?
Yeah, I do, and I think we all greatly underestimated it. I underestimated it. Joe Biden did some student loan forgiveness. I believe it was like $10,000 to $20,000 people getting student loan forgiveness within a certain bracket of borrowers. But the reason why they've gone out and voted for Democrats, these young people, is not in gratitude to Joe Biden, because a lot of them were disappointed by this being the package. What they've done is they've gone to vote for Democrats because they want more. So Joe Biden gave them a taste of student loan forgiveness, and they know that Republicans will give nothing. So they're going out and voting for Democrats because they want the gravy train of student loan forgiveness to continue. And they know under Democrats it will. I think that it was probably a good choice for a lot of young people if that's the one issue they care about, because Republicans, they're not going to do any student loan forgiveness, and they're very open about that.
Yeah, interesting. Couple of questions. Jen's asking about Arizona, and Jen, what's happening in Arizona? Katie Hobbs is narrowly leading Kerry Lake for governor, but Blake Masters is getting it handed to him by the Kelly guy. The Democrat is way ahead in the polls right now. He's almost got 52% to Blake Masters' 48%, and there's a very wide gap in the votes. And there's not, but it's 77% reporting tonight. So there's a lot of votes to count, but it's not looking good for that seat. So that's what's happening in Arizona. There's been no change since we've been talking. It's 210 to 192. Dems are basically, the Republicans are in route to take the House. Nancy says, will the senators stand up to McConnell and dare to nominate and elect someone else? I tell you what, Nancy, if they don't, they're going to lose their party. But do you think her question is legitimate, because there is no, it seems like we go through the same thing that we go through with the candidates, Magdalen. It seems like every time we turn around, the leadership never changes in the Republican Party. It never changes. And we're no better than the Dems. The Dems have had Nancy Pelosi in there for 20 years. Yep, we have the same jackasses on the Republican side too. And something's got to give. And I think her question's legitimate. Do you think they're going to have the guts to do it this time? It's a good question, Nancy.
I don't think so. I know that on the Democrat side, it's probably going to be Hakeem Jeffries as the Speaker of the House, and he is a more moderate compared to the squad. On the GOP side, honestly, they have a better chance of getting rid of Mitch McConnell than they do Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy raises a huge amount of money. He is one of the most prolific fundraisers politics in America has ever seen. And he's very good at it. And there are a lot of Republicans even who will complain about him, who greatly benefit. And I heard that on another news channel as well, that the Republicans who are complaining about Kevin McCarthy, who are upset about him, even rightfully so, they benefit from Kevin McCarthy's fundraising. Mitch McConnell, on the other hand, has always been seen as this strategy guy. He does fundraising too, but he's always been seen as the one who can corral votes for legislation. But we're not getting any legislation through anyway. So if I was in the Republican Senate, what I would say is we need new leadership, and you might go for someone like Rick Scott, who I think could be more of a compromised candidate. I'd like to see Ted Cruz as Senate Majority Leader or Minority Leader. I think it can't be worse than what we're at now, and at least he would be more fired up. You could have him, or you could have Marco Rubio. Those are the only three I really see as a possibility. Chuck Grassley maybe, but he might be a little bit too old at this point.
Yeah. Carol Smith got a question. Before I go to that question, I do want to ask Danny Hauser's question. Do you even think that Mitch McConnell even cares who wins these races?
No, I don't. I don't think he cares. I think that's a good question as well. Because if Mitch McConnell will either be, in Mitch McConnell's mind, Senate Majority Leader or Senate Minority Leader. Both those titles are pretty good. And he's always going to be a senator because he's in a safe seat. I don't think he cares. I think Kevin McCarthy cares, but I don't think Mitch McConnell cares after the Trump years.
Yeah. Cleo makes a good point about Ron DeSantis. She says that his kids are a lot younger, and all hell will come against him in this presidential race. And the kids would probably not be as seasoned to endure the attacks as Don Jr., Eric, and Ivanka were with the Trump family. They're a little older. That's a good point, and I think it's a well taken point. It's
a good point, but I will say I think that he could push this Republican idea of Camelot in the same way the Kennedys did. And his wife is so on point. I have not seen a Republican first lady on the state level or a senator's wife or anybody be as good at the job as she is. And their kids are young enough. I think that there's 3 of them, and there's 2 girls and a boy. I don't think the media would attack 5-year-olds or 3-year-olds or anything in the same way. There's not really going to be any scandals coming out of her toddlers. So I don't think that that's going to be as big of an issue. If anything, having a young family will probably help him. His last baby was the first baby born to a sitting governor in 50 years. So to me, that's actually a plus for him.
Yeah. Koji, your comment about the conservative talking heads and the blue check elite rhinos are a problem. Well, don't listen to them. They trash Trump. Of course they trash Trump. What do you expect them to do? That's why you turn it off, Koji. There's an off button on your television and an off button on your podcast and an off button on your YouTube channel. Stop listening to them. Stop listening to them. The country listens to them, but I'm going to tell you something. The only reason these people have got traction is because people give them time. Am I right, Rose? Am I right?
You are. And on a side note on Twitter, Twitter is undergoing a massive problem right now with these blue check marks. Have you seen what's happening with these blue check marks? I follow a couple fan accounts for Taylor Swift and various other singers, and they're verified now. So you're not sure if the person tweeting out gossip facts is an actual person or an algorithm. It's a mess. I don't know what Elon Musk was thinking. Because you've got people with 3 followers tweeting out things, and people think that's actually Taylor Swift. I think it's a disaster that's going on. People should not get attached to their blue check marks. I didn't get one. I chose not to do the Twitter blue thing because there's no way that's going to last its current configuration.
Okay. All right. Carol Smith, this is an excellent question. And good to see you, Carol. She says, do you think each year more indoctrinated youth can vote and my generation are decreasing will make it harder in the future for conservatives to win? And I think what she's saying is that the rising number of youth that are voting, that are indoctrinated with this liberal mindset, and you got a handle on this, you're out there watching this, it's a great question. And her generation are being sort of marginalized. And me and Carol, I'm assuming, Carol, you're like me, you've got a little white on top of the mountain a little bit. But her question is well taken and warranted. Where are the dynamics of these elections going, Magdalene? Because there is a shift. There is a shift in the dynamics of those voting, correct?
Yeah, oh yeah, and it's a nightmare. In this election, young people broke 3-1 for Democrats, and that's in an off-season election year without a presidential race on the ballot and the president deciding the Supreme Court with abortion being a major topic after Roe v. Wade was overturned. It's a nightmare. When we were in the 2018 midterms and the 2020 race, we lost the youth vote by 30 points. That's growing every day, and I've seen all these young activists on the liberal side on Twitter saying, see, look, we delivered, we kept this country blue. We are out there pushing the young liberals to the polls. It's a massive problem, and I don't know if we're ever going to be in a position where we even have the bodies to really contend with this simply on a numbers level with voters.
Where do we fix that, though? How does that get fixed?
I don't even know where to start with that because we're down so much. we're down so much, so widespread. I think it starts with having a true strategist at the top levels of the RNC. I'll tell you a quick story, actually, that you might find amusing. A couple years ago, I went to Washington, D.C., and I spoke to Matt Schlapp at a conservative gathering, and I said to him, our director of youth engagement on the RNC, who at the time had blocked me on Twitter and still has, he's not doing anything for the GOP. He's not going to help us. I think this was either before or after the 2018 midterms. And Matt Schlapp said to me, we have a director of youth engagement? He had no idea. He had no idea we had a director of youth engagement. Neither did Kellyanne Conway. So this is the position we were in 2018. So I want people to understand that when I say we have no leadership at the top, I went to DC. I tried to help. They don't want to hear it. They think that people will eventually grow up and become Republicans. That's not happening anymore.
That is incredibly sad that the head of the CPAC, Matt Schlapp, did not have an idea that there was no youth leader. Are you kidding me?
He had no idea. And I said to him, I wasn't the only one. This man, Mitch Freckleton, who I've made other posts about, he had blocked several young conservatives on Twitter who had said to him, why aren't you doing anything? Who had been tweeting at him, asking him, basically begging him to help save the country that he was in the position to be helping with. And he blocked people on Twitter. He's now no longer the director of youth engagement. He went on to another political job to manage another campaign that failed. And the head of CPAC had no idea that there was a director of youth engagement for the RNC. This man had one YouTube follower. The director of youth engagement for the RNC had one YouTube follower and one what I think was a travel blog from like 8 years ago. And he was 30 and married with children. Yeah. Is that really a director of youth engagement?
No, it's not. Yeah. Jack's question, it's actually a good question, Jack. What if you were advising Herschel Walker tonight? It's a great question. What is his best strategy moving forward? Should he attack Warnock or concentrate on positive things that he can accomplish? I think that's an excellent question because I think what you're saying about him is very true. He's really a version of Trump like Trump was in 2016. Trump was an outsider. He wasn't a politician. Trump was raw. But Trump had that personality. The difference in Herschel and Trump, Herschel don't have the personality. And he's doing the canned rhetoric. It's a great question. If you're advising Herschel Walker tonight, how does he beat Warnock in that runoff? That's a great question.
He needs Brian Kemp next to him at everything he does. He needs to be running a positive campaign. He needs to let the third party, PACs and everything, attack Raphael Warnock. But he needs to be going and kissing some babies and going to soup kitchens and being happy and being everywhere. And he needs to be at every football game and every sports game. He needs to act like he's already a senator from Georgia and he's simply doing the rounds and talking to his constituents. Because if he continues down this negative path, I don't see a huge victory. Also, getting out Ted Cruz, getting out people who really can explain why people need to vote for Herschel is a good idea, but I would not go all in on another Trump level campaign situation. Okay. I would go with Brian Kemp at this point to hold on to the Senate.
I'm with you. I'm with you there. Victoria Law, good to hear you tonight or from you. She's one of our regulars over on Facebook tonight. We haven't talked about this, but Miss Whitmer up in Whittier, whatever her name is, got reelected in Michigan. You would have thought that after the crap that Michigan's went through with the COVID and the mandates this evil, blank put them through, that would have been the last person they would have wanted running their state for 4 years. Victoria's question is, what better could have been done in Michigan with campaign strategy? We need to get better at this here. Now, how can it be turned around? That's an excellent question. I was shocked. That was another shocker to me, that she would get reelected. I thought for sure that they would kick her out on her can. And they didn't.
They didn't, because Republicans are not doing well in Michigan. In Michigan in 2016, current chairwoman of the RNC, Ronna McDaniel, who was not the chairwoman at the time, she won Michigan for Trump. She was the one who was the architect of that. Since then, the GOP's had no wins in Michigan. We've tried this with John James. We have tried this repeatedly. The people of Michigan do not want Republican leadership. So if you don't get it on a statewide race level, you need to start locally. I would start with state representative seats, state Senate seats, small potatoes, because because we tried this with John James. A lot of money went into that John James race. We had all those rallies with Kid Rock and Don Jr. and all that, and it got us nothing. So overall in Michigan, the way forward is from the bottom up, low-level seats, and then maybe try to go all in on a congressional seat. But you're not going to flip that governor's mansion. You're not going to flip the Senate. They don't want us right now, and that's something that has to be accepted.
Yeah, I'm just curious. You mentioned Lauren Boebert. Have you had any updates on that race?
She's still in the fight. It seems like it's going to be by like the smallest vote margin there can be. I've seen numbers like they're between them by like 700 votes. It is still in a fight. They're still counting votes. She is very surprised, though. You can tell that. She's shocked that this is happening, as are Democrats. Democrats did not expect this. And it's a good indicator to me that Colorado is trending even more blue than we originally thought.
Yeah.
And this should be a warning sign. This should be an alarm bell going off that Colorado's in danger.
Interesting. Do you think that Biden is out there tonight? I'll just read you this quote. He says, quote, "The American people have made it clear they expect Republicans to work with me." I think that's a big joke. Let me tell you something. If the Republicans win this House and they compromise with him, Magdalene, they're not going to win another election for 50 years.
No, they're not going to win anything. We're going to be done with them. I don't mean me, I don't mean you, but the Republicans in this country, they're going to be done with him. And at some point, people have to get what they voted for. In 2016, when this country delivered Republicans the Senate, the House, the presidency, that was the chance. We were saying, we want you to run everything. You've had enough of these 8 years of this Obama-ness and this like ridiculous way of the world's on fire, but it's okay because I'm on the Jimmy Kimmel show. We'd had enough of this. They didn't do anything with it on a legislative level that we appreciated. And we remember that now and in the future after these races.
Yeah. My moderator, Cleo, tonight, sweet lady over on Facebook, my dear friend, she sent me something. This is Matt Schlapp. Young voters are actually becoming more pro-life than you think, and she says not in numbers, clearly.
None of that's true. None of that's true. Matt Schlapp.
Is Matt Schlapp out of touch, or is he just stupid?
I can't tell if Matt Schlapp is delusional or just running on hopium at this point, because none of the things Matt Schlapp says ever happen. Even that nobody in the young conservative movement even cares about CPAC anymore. This is like one of the worst kept secrets. Young conservatives look at CPAC as like some boring old traditional thing. People don't care about it anymore, and yet somehow we're still listening to Matt Schlapp on a strategic level.
Yeah. Carol Smith is a Michigander, and she says, as a Michigander, I saw no ads by Dixon while the Dems flooded social media. 95% of those ads were about abortion.
Yeah, there it is. Young women want access to abortion. As a young woman, there's lots of things I care about. I care about pro-life issues, but I'm not a young leftist woman. Young leftist women care hugely about abortion. I don't understand why. I don't get it. I think it's weird, but it's a religion for them. So let them have that, but you have to counter it. I think also that show, The Handmaid's Tale, are you familiar with that show? That's really, it has pushed a lot of young women into a fear area where they're afraid of that happening. They think this is going to become Gilead. And that level of fear, Democrats tapped into very successfully right now.
Yeah. Efren says, do you think the liberal-minded set of the kids has to come from broken homes, or is it just the guidance they're getting in faith or college? Where is this liberal shift in the young people coming, in your opinion? It's a good question.
I think it's a group of things. A lot of this comes down to the school safety thing. I am of the generation that grew up doing active shooter drills and bomb squad drills. I am of the generation that had to remember how to put our desks in front of classroom doors and have cards in the windows. It's a different mindset to grow up like that. You feel very unsafe all the time. So I think there's that. And then there's this idea that they are just socially liberal because of media and everything. It's not the broken homes thing in my mind. It's simply because this is how culture is, it's how education is, and young people are afraid and they can't buy anything because there's no money here. There's the housing market is a mess, so they go to the area that will be more helpful to them. And right now, unfortunately, they think that's the liberal area.
Yeah. Associated Press at 10:30 tonight. No update. 210 to 192. And so forth. Buddy, we've had you for an hour and 11 minutes. I'm going to let you get out of here. I know you got a big day tomorrow in school. Listen, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. I just, you have just outdid yourself this week, young lady. I appreciate you. I do. And I don't say that lightly. We're going to be making some changes in our lineup coming 2023, and you're going to be part of that in a positive way. And we won't make any formal announcement just yet, but we've been talking to Magdalen about coming on a regular basis and a little bit more. And we still got your show, with your interviews that you do with other people. And I'm just proud of you. And I tell you this all the time, and I say this not. I say it jokingly in some manner, but in a way I don't. I look at you almost like my own child. I do. I care for you that much. You're just a precious young lady. I've always been proud of your just willingness to tell the truth and not back down in this era of this toxicity of political correctness. You just say it like you feel. And, even us conservatives, us old people, we may not agree with everything you say. I've never heard anything I have disagreed with you about. Just perspective has been a little different. But I'm proud of you, and I want you to know that you've always given me hope that when my time here on this earth is done, if the Lord tarries, the Lord may come back before any of us get up too much older, but if the Lord does tarry any length of time and my time on this earth ends, I am optimistic that people like Magdalen Rose are going to be running our nation. If they're all like you, we're going to be in good shape, kid. And I want you to know that. And I appreciate you. Tell your mom hello for me. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. You got 3 minutes, not 30, but 3. Final thoughts. Wrap us up tonight. I'm going to say goodnight to you.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on. I think that the main takeaway from this election, and when we see all these election results trickle in over the next couple of days, probably we'll know everything, I would say, by Wednesday of this coming week, or most things, is that no matter how you look at this was disappointing for Republicans. It was disappointing for conservatives, and it didn't need to happen. And there is a real lack of content in the GOP right now. We underestimated abortion. We underestimated student loans. And it seems like Democrats did not underestimate us in any way. And that's uncomfortable for me as a Republican, as a strategist. It's an uncomfortable reality. Republican voters, conservative voters, Christian voters, Jewish voters, they have to start going to the RNC and going to their local representatives and telling them exactly what they want addressed, because that is the only way the GOP is really going to understand what the content is that they need and understand what they need to campaign on. A lot of people are angry at Trump right now. I think he made some poor strategic decisions. I think he was aware there were poor strategic decisions and still went with them, the most obvious of those being Oz. But on the other hand, how do you win Ohio without him and without J.D. Vance having his support? So we're in a very difficult position in that you can't sacrifice him at this point because you still need him, but yet there are problems that he brings. So there needs to be a real reckoning, and that might come down to simply Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump having to duke it out in a presidential primary. That might be the only solution. If Ron DeSantis represents this new phase of conservatism and Trump represents the current or old one, that fight might need to happen to have the Republican Party figure out where it's going to go. I hope it doesn't. I hope there's just a settlement beforehand, but I think that that's how this is going to be settled in the coming years.
Do you agree with this statement with John Quallen tonight, that the plain simple truth is that Democrats are better politicians than Republicans?
I think they are. I think they're better politicians. I think they're more engaged. I think their strategists are smarter. And even more than that, I think they are less driven by this sort of corporatization of the GOP. I don't think that exists on the Democrat side. The Democrat side seems to truly be about wanting certain positions to happen and certain policies to happen, whereas on the GOP, it seems to all be driven by money and fame, and that's a very big switch in recent years.
Well said, kid. And that's sad, because that's going to be the death of our party.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to be the death of the Republican Party. And John's point is well taken tonight. It's very sad that we've reached that point, because, as you said, it used to be the other way around.
It did.
It used to be we, the Republicans, had the issue. We argued issues, and we were on the winning side of issues. And now we can't even defend our position on life, Magdalen.
No,
we can't even stand up for the babies.
We can.
And the Democrats, they'll kill a baby at 9 months and defend that to their freaking grave
and win.
They'll win on it, because the people see their passion for it. We can't even defend the life of an unborn child, and that sickens me. That this party has gotten to that place. It sickens me. It does.
And I think just my final thought on this is, you need to stop with the corporatization of the GOP, the grifting, the whole thing of everyone needs to make money and everybody needs to be a product influencer on Fox News and the commercials, and everyone wants to be an Instagram influencer. There needs to be true ideologues in this party again.
Come on.
For better or for worse, if there is not that, I don't see how the GOP goes forward, because Democrats will have the youngest, fiercest, smartest, loudest people out there, and they will do the door knocking, and they will go out and they will protest, and they will get people to the polls. And from where I'm standing, it seems like the only thing Republicans are capable of doing is under delivering, over promising, and making it so that the party is so toxic and has so much infighting we can't even have a real autopsy at the end of an election.
Well said, kid. I wish I could keep you 3 hours tonight, but I'm not going to keep you 5 like I did Tuesday night. I'm going to give you the rest of the night off. Listen, I'll see you next week, Lord willing, or the week after. Magdalen Rose, everybody. Put some fire in that house for Magdalen. I'm going to say goodnight to you. I got to say goodnight to these folks here. Thank you, kid. Love you. Appreciate you, sweetie. God bless. Have a great night. Thank you so much, kid.
Bye.
Good night. All righty, folks. That's a sweet youngin' right there. I tell you what, I cannot stress enough how proud I am of her, and I really am grateful, truly grateful for her tonight, and I hope that you all enjoyed her. She's got her stuff together. That's all I got to say. I'm just in awe sometimes, stuff that comes out of her mouth, and it's all good. Ain't a thing I heard tonight. I keep seeing the comments about the voting machines and this and that and the other about the Dominion voting machines and all this stuff. And folks, at the end of the night, if you've got Dominion voting machines in your state and you don't want Virginia, you don't want Dominion voting machines counting your votes, raise hell with your county commission, raise hell with your state, raise hell with your governor, get those machines out. You got the power. We the people got the power. We the people have got the power, folks. And instead of complaining about it and acting like every election that's lost is about a machine, then stop raising sand about it. Do something about it. You've got the power. We the people got the power. Go to your governor. Go to your governor. Go to your state and say, we need these machines out of here. Get it done. And, whatever. And Jen, if you don't like the ranked voting, tell your congressman, tell your people, I don't like it. And let it, get your opinion out there. Folks, I don't know why that's all we do is complain about stuff that we've got the power to change. And again, this hopelessness, this attitude that we can't do nothing, we can't change nothing, that's going to be the death knell of us. But Steve tonight, I think, let the cat out of the bag. 22%, folks. 22% voter turnout. Voter turnout. And I think ultimately, folks, that's going to be the bigger story than the Dominion voting machines. Because I don't care how many votes they flip. If you got 22% turnout, it ain't going to matter how many votes you take. They can tinker with it all they want to. You get 100% of the people that are registered to vote to turn out. They can't flip all of them, folks. They can't flip all of them. I'm just saying. Now, I know some of you think I'm naive about that, and you're going to go to bed at night and lay your head down on that pillow and say, well, McDonald's just a naive individual. I probably am. I know. I probably am. But that's all right. But I'm sort of getting sick of the narrative. It's just like Magdalen just said about the Republicans and the way that they overpromise and underdeliver. Well, we can only keep saying that they cheated so long until we look ourselves in the mirror and take a look at our party and take a look at our movement and understand that the enemy may not be the machines. It may be our candidates. It may be our candidates. It may be the people we're putting in there in the primaries. It may be the whole structure. And John, your point tonight was very well taken. I saw it. The second you said it, I said, I agree with that. We better understand that the people we're fighting against, folks, they believe in what they are rabidly ready to defend the killing of that baby to the death. I'm telling you, they're ready to defend the killing of the babies. We saw that Tuesday night. How committed are we to saving them? And if you only got 22% turnout in Indianapolis, which is one of the biggest cities in Indiana, that lets me know that our side wasn't that energized about defending life. So, again, if it's an easy crutch for you out there to say, well, it's all cheating and that's all it is, then knock yourself out. Knock yourself out. I've come to realize, folks, it's a little bit more than the cheating. The enemy is in the mirror. The enemy to our nation changing is in us. We the people. We the people. And when we the people don't exercise our right to vote, and we sit around and we listen to these letter movements that promise us that the plan is working and we're just watching a movie and all this is going to be fixed and all of this stuff's going to be worked out in a few weeks, instead of taking active participation in our government and active participation in our country and making sure that our country remains free and we're vigilant with our rights and we're vigilant to fight for our rights. Let me tell you something, folks. That's going to be the death knell of America. It will be the death knell of your family. It will be the death knell of all of us. And I don't care how many Dominion vote machines are out there, folks. If you only had 22% turnout in one of the biggest cities of America, I guarantee you when these numbers come in, I may be proven wrong. And if I'm proven wrong, McDonald's man enough to get back on this network and look into this camera and say, Chris was wrong. I've done that before, and I'm sure I'll have to do it again. But I'm going to stick to my guns on this until I'm proven wrong. The voter turnout will be one of the lowest in history Tuesday night when we get the numbers of how many people voted compared to registered voters. And I'm really interested in that number about Christian voter turnout. Now, I'm going to hold my cannon fire until I get those numbers. I'm working on trying to get those right now. But I'm telling you, folks, it's going to come down to who showed up and who didn't. I think ultimately that's what it's going to come down to. The Dems showed up Tuesday night. They were rapidly showing up Tuesday night. So, anyway. Now, again, you may not agree with that, and that's all right. But that's my opinion. And I guess it is this is the McFiles, right, Kerry Henderson? All my moderators out there, I'll ask Ken and Jamie and Natalie Corbin and Patriot, NorCal Gal, Roberta Foster's in the house tonight. All my moderators, Kathy Long, Cleo, all my moderators, Joe Rowan, all of them. It is the McFiles still, right? Is it still the McFiles? Thank you, Ken. It is the McFiles, so I guess I can have an opinion on my own show. And Jennifer, your point is well taken. There's Christians and then there's quote-unquote Christians. That's true. That is true. American Patriot, what happened Tuesday night was not the Lord's plans. The Lord don't plan for this nation to be soaked in blood with the blood of babies, a Patriot. I don't know where people are getting this idea that it's God's plans to put baby killers in power. It's not. That's not God's plan. No, that's not God's plan. I hate to tell you, that's not God's plan. It sure ain't. And I'm tired of hearing this. I've heard this for 2 days now about, well, I just don't know about, everything's working out in God's plan. If you can look me in the face and tell me that a party that's in power tonight that kills the babies is God's plan, it's not. It's not. No, it's not. None of this has been God's plan. God is allowing it to happen because America's in a backslidden state. I hope you hear me. I hope you hear me tonight. America's in a backslidden state. And I'm going to say this about this, and I'm going to get off here. I got to play a new song for you tonight we recorded. Oh, you don't have to apologize, Patriot. I'm just correcting your statement, though. You don't have to apologize to me whether you misunderstood me or not. It's not God's plan what's going on. It's not God's plan what's going on. I'm not upset with you. But it's not God's plan that this land is being soaked in blood. It's not God's plan that Christians sit on their derrieres and don't get to the polls and vote for life. And the Democrats were bragging yesterday that they stopped the Republicans in some states, not all of them, but in some, of making sure abortion was outlawed. And I'm telling you, folks, that was what this election came down to Tuesday night. And Mahgdalen said it. We just didn't see it. We thought it was about the economy. You know why we thought it was about the economy? That's what the media told us. that it was about. That's what the media told us it was about. And we didn't see that it was about those babies. And ultimately, isn't it all elections about the babies? When you get down to it, isn't every election about the babies? Isn't every election about the babies? It is, folks. When you get down to it. When you get down to it. When you get down to it. All righty. I think we've had a pretty daggum good night. It is sad, Daphne Hoy. It is. It is. Now, this is not our face show. This is not our face show. But I want to say this going out tonight, folks. You do need to pray for your country. You do need to pray for your country, and we need to pray. This House is still winnable. We may get the House. The Senate's going to be a tougher fight. I still believe that we can pray, and the Senate can be ours too if we pray. It's all going to come down to Georgia, folks. At the end of the night, it's going to come down to December the 6th, and we need to pray for Herschel Walker, because he may very well be the key to whether the Dems keep the Senate and the Republicans take the House, or we get both the Senate and the House. So I'm believing that the Lord's going to help us if we will pray. But I'll tell this to the Georgia people out there. It ain't going to matter how much we pray if you sit at home and don't go vote. I'm going to say that again. It ain't going to matter how much we pray if you sit at home and don't vote. And yes, Jen, prayers for Arizona. Prayers for Kerry Lake. I'm not sure about prayers for Brent Masters is going to help, because he's way out of there. He's way out in the election. But, and folks, let me just say this. I think, in an overall perspective, whereas there wasn't this red wave, there is still victory in some things that happened Tuesday night. If we win the House, that's a victory. If we get the Senate, that's a victory. We may not have the biggest margin, but we'll be in control of those two bodies. Look at the positive. We need to pray, and we need to get close to God, draw close to Him, and make sure our faith is intact. I'm going to say what I said last night on our faith show. Your faith shouldn't change, folks, depending on the political climate. Your political climate should not change your faith, no matter who's in power. We've still got the power as the children of God to affect change in this nation, folks. We do. But we can't affect change if we're not willing to do our part. And most Christians are not doing it. And Jennifer Cooper's comment is absolutely right. There's a lot of quote-unquote Christians that are Christians in name only. And if you were with us last night, I don't want to rehash something and beat a dead horse, but when you have T.D. Jakes and Creflo Dollar endorsing Beto O'Rourke and Stacey Abrams, rabid abortion supporters, the church has no longer become the church. It's a country club, and it's sad. And John, God can only be with us if let me tell you something. God will not be with us unless we're on His terms, John. And I love these bumper sticker Christianity things, and John, I understand what you're saying, and I'm with you on that. But God cannot be with us. Folks, do you realize that we had 678 LGBTQ candidates that ran for office Tuesday night? Do you realize that was a record number of LGBTQ candidates? We had never had that many candidates on the ballot ever in the history of this nation. 678. I ask you a blunt question tonight, folks. Can God be with us doing that? Can God be with us killing the babies? Can God be with us supporting perversion? Can God be with us opening our borders to hell itself? Can God be with us with the corruption? Can God be with us in any of that? So it's not a matter of God, folks. I don't question the fact that God can be with us. Who can be against us? That's right. But the question is God with us? And I would submit to you tonight that until America comes back to God, that God will not be with America. And God will not manufacture a vote, Marilyn. Exactly right. He's not going to be manufacturing a vote. That's an excellent point, friend. He's not going to manufacture a vote. You, the people, we the people, we the people. And Ginger, it's not so much that he don't want to be with us. He does want to be with us. Your question is right. His mercy wants to be with us. He does not want this for America, folks. That's all my point tonight. He does not want us to be in this state. He does not want us to be in this state. Well, John, it's a spiritual point as well as politically. It don't matter whether you mean it spiritually or politically. It's the same issue, friend. Do you think America is spiritually in a position that God would be with us? God can't be with us. His church is not with God. Folks, you got entire segments of the church. Let me just throw this at you as we wrap this up tonight. I got a new song I'm going to play for you tonight. Brand new. We're going to be releasing it sometime later this month. But do you realize, folks, that most of the church probably went into that voting booth? I'm saying most. I would say a segment at least. A segment of the church went into those voting booths Tuesday night and voted blue. Look, if T.D. Jakes' church, T.D. Jakes has about 50, I'm guessing 5,000-6,000 people that go to his church there in Texas. I don't know how many he's got, but his outreach is millions over this nation, folks. How many people listened to T.D. Jakes' endorsed Beto O'Rourke this weekend and then went into that poll Tuesday night and voted Democrat? Just thinking. I'm just asking for a friend. So, spiritually speaking, if the church is not going to get in line with God's plan, how can we expect the nation to? Folks, we can't. We can't. So whether it's spiritual or political, it's the same issue, folks. God is not necessarily, it's not that he don't want to be on our side. God wants to be on our side. He loves his people. And the remnant, folks, to be honest with you, if it wasn't for this remnant, there ain't telling what would be going on with this country. But the remnant still has the intercessory power, and I still believe we're holding back judgment on this country with our prayers and intercession. We're holding it back with our prayers and intercession. John, I'm not taking issue with you. I understand your point, but the spiritual issue is the same as the political, folks. The church ain't right. And until the church gets right with God, I hate to tell you, it ain't going to make a difference. Cleo says the turnout among young voters was the second highest for a midterm in the past 30 years. Folks, the young people came out to vote Tuesday night. They didn't vote red, I can tell you that. You heard Mahgdalen say it tonight. They were voting to protect abortion, folks. They were voting to protect abortion. They were voting to protect abortion. Interesting. And sad. All right. I've made my point tonight. Have you enjoyed Magdalene Rose on this Thursday night, the 10th day of November, 2022? I sure did. And I think we've had a wonderful night tonight, and we still got about 332 people in the house. And American, don't feel bad. Don't feel bad about what you said. People misunderstand me sometimes. I'm not upset with you. I just wanted to clarify what you were saying, though, because this is not God's plan. I'm not upset with you, American Patriot. You're good. We're all good. Somebody was telling me tonight I'm mellowing out. I'm mellowing out quite a bit. I've been at this show. Do you realize that this show will be 5 years old come January the 1st? I've got to get a T-shirt. 5 years old. 5 years. Now, I'm accused of being a 5-year-old sometimes, so I guess that's sort of apropos. But, Patriot, I'm not mad with you. I wasn't mad with you at all. I'm just trying to clarify what you said, though. It's not God's plan what happened Tuesday night, folks. Sure wasn't his will. But I'm going to tell you what's happening. God is allowing these things, folks, because of our lack of conviction and our lack of courage to do what's right and stand up for these babies and stand up for truth in this hour. Until his church does that, you're going to see the thing continue the way you see them. And they're probably going to get worse. All right, now, I got a song I want to share with you tonight. And, this is a brand new song. It's a spiritual song. I'm going to turn my camera off. And it's I was going to play a Christmas song, but I want to play this song because it's sort of a brand new release. My buddy Eddie Cole helped me do this. And I hope that you enjoyed this song. And some of you may have heard this song before. I think the Dixie Melody Boys recorded this. But as I said, we've been going 5 years on this show. And Jamie Eckert, of course I'm mellowing out. Do you not? Does this face not look like it's mellowing out? Seriously? It's mellowing out a little bit. It's mellowing out a little bit. Somewhat. Still the Bear Man. Just a nicer version of the Bear Man is emerging as we get into the 6th year of the McFiles. This is dedicated, this song, to all those that don't think you can sing. And it's going to tell the story of a man named Jesse that tried out for this choir 35 years in a row. And Jesse finally got to sing in a choir. And my dear buddy Eddie Cole recorded this. I will tell you this, tomorrow night I'll be on late. We're going to be possibly singing for the North American Music Association here in Knoxville tomorrow night. So say a prayer for your host. Don't know where that's going to lead. They've asked me to come audition for them. Not going to change anything. I'm not going nowhere. We're going to be doing this show till Jesus comes. But Eddie sent them some music of mine, and they contacted me, and so we'll see how that goes. But I'm going to sing this song for them tomorrow night that you're about to hear. And I hope this song will bless you tonight. And I'm going to say goodnight after this. This is the Antioch Church Choir. And this is dedicated to all you that don't think you can sing. Because you can. Just like Uncle Jesse. Let this song bless you. Have a good night, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. Probably be on late. Do a Q&A tomorrow night. No guests tomorrow night. We get back to the guests next week. We've got some new guests coming next week. You're going to enjoy them. Maria Miller will be back with me too. Love you guys. Did you enjoy the show tonight? Put some fire in that house for us, folks. We do love you. We're just trying to encourage the troops. Keep you fired up out there. Don't get discouraged. Don't get discouraged. We still have a lot of hope, folks. A lot of hope. Things are going to get worked out. They will. In God's time and in God's way. Let this song bless you tonight. Be blessed. Have a good night.
Please let me sing in the choir, in the choir. Please let me sing in the choir. One old man can't be all that bad. Won't you please let me sing in the choir? I guess you'd say he's a fixture. Around town they all knew his name. And every time the church bells ring, Uncle Jesse up, he up and came. He always sat in the very front pew, humming in a voice loud and rough. When it came to the Antioch Church House Choir, Uncle Jesse never heard enough. He always wanted to sing in the choir, but he couldn't sing a lick, don't you know. Tried out for the Antioch Choir 34 years in a row. He always get to the tryouts early. He wanted to try out first. But instead of his singing getting better, every year it got a little worse. He said, please let me sing in the choir, in the choir. Please let me sing in the choir. One old man can't be all that bad. Won't you please let me sing in the choir? One cloudy Sunday morning, I remember it was raining some. The church bells rang and everyone came except Jesse, he didn't come. And everybody started getting worried, but they figured they'd start anyhow. Just as they did, Jesse's voice came down, booming down from heaven's crowd. He said, I found a choir that'll let me sing. Now I'm singing in the choir, and I can raise my voice just as high as yours, maybe just a little higher. Well, I found me a choir that'll let me sing. Now I'm singing in the choir. Oh, you folks down there, you can't hold me a light, 'cause I'm singing in the heavenly choir. Oh, I found me a choir that'll let me sing. Now I'm singing in the choir, and I can lift my voice just as high as yours, maybe just a little higher. Oh, I found me a choir that'll let me sing. Now I'm singing in the choir. You folks down there, you can't hold me a light, 'cause I'm singing in the heavenly choir. Please let me sing in the choir, in the choir. Please let me sing in the choir. One old man can't be all that bad. Won't you please let me sing in the choir?
That's an upcoming single we got coming out in a few weeks. The Antioch Church House Choir. You know, I'm at an hour 43. It's Christmas is around the corner. It may be snowing in these hills. So we do need a Christmas carol tonight. See you tomorrow night, folks. Be blessed. Good night.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful, and the fire is so delightful. Since we've no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. It doesn't show signs of stopping, and I brought some corn for popping. The lights are turned way down low. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. When we finally kiss goodnight, how I hate going out in the storm. But if you'll really hold me tight, all the way home I'll be warm. The fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbying. As long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. When we finally kiss goodnight, how I hate going out in the storm. But if you'll really hold me tight, all the way home I'll be warm. The fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbying. But as long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
Have a great Thursday night, everybody. Be blessed. Thank you for joining us tonight. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you tomorrow night. God bless.
It's knowing that your door is always open and your path is free to walk. It makes me tend to leave my sleeping bag rolled up and stashed behind your couch. It's knowing I'm not shackled by forgotten words and bonds, and the ink stains that have dried upon some line. That keeps you in the back roads by the rivers of my memory, that keeps you ever gentle on my mind. It's not clinging to the rocks and ivy painted on their columns now that bind me, or something that somebody said because they thought we fit together walking. It's not knowing that the world will not be cursing or forgiving when I walk around the railroad track and find that you're moving on the back roads by the rivers of my memory, and hours you're just gentle on my mind. Though the wheat fields and the clotheslines and the junkyards and the highways come between us, and some other woman's crying to her mother 'cause she turned and I was gone, I still might run in silence, tears of joy might stain my face, and the summer sun might burn me till I'm blind. But not to where I cannot see you walking on the back roads by the rivers flowing gentle on my mind. I dip my cup of soup back from a gurgling, crackling cauldron in some train yard, my beard a rustling towel and a dirty hat pulled low across my face. Through cup hands round the tin can, I pretend to hold you to my breast and find that you're waiting from the back roads by the rivers of my memories, ever smiling, ever gentle on my mind.